it's a lot more difficult today for a young person in the community, a young aspiring musician, to have the kind of direct contact that you could have. There aren't the ballrooms, there aren't the nightclubs, there aren't the jam sessions. What do you see as what can be done to replace those as kind of means of transmitting the culture? Each one of those is a way of transmitting and linking future generations, coming up generations, which what other generations were doing, in a way of establishing continuity. We don't have those things now. What do you see as some things that could come online to replace that?
One of the things is exactly what we're doing here in doing this tape is, I think a lot of it, the emphasis is now pointed towards school and the classroom. Because of that same reason that you just mentioned, we no longer have jam sessions in most nightclubs. You don't have clubs where young musicians can go in and sit next to their peers and learn whatever it is they want to learn in terms of their craft from the peers and the innovators. Because in most of today's music, that's been removed. Also by the fact that there are so many, like I said, so many innovators and creators of this particular phase of the music that are no longer here. I think it becomes vitally important that we use every means we have, in other words, in bringing this attention into the forefront as far as students, and especially students and kids who are involved in this kind of thing. In other words, want to get involved in things musically, or want to get involved in music itself. You know, in other words, we need every outlet that we have, and I feel this has, in the last 15 or 20 years, become a very important factor in getting that kind of thing done and getting across to the people.
Now, I teach a course which is not part of the core curriculum, so I think actually if it was part of the core curriculum, I could have about 700 or 800, but I don't like to have my course required. That's part of the legacy of the 60s that I'm a part of. I'd rather have the students choose, as it were. But again, it's really, you know, popularity is superficial. I want to be able to engage in the grand calling of a Socratic teacher, which is not to persuade and convince students, but to unsettle and unnerve and maybe even unhouse a few students so that they experience that wonderful vertigo and dizziness, and recognizing at least for a moment that their worldview rests on pudding, but then see that they have something to fall back on. It's the shaping and forming of critical sensibility. That, for me, is what the high calling of pedagogy really is.
The night she passed away, I called my lyricist and I said, can you put music to Young, Gifted, and Black? And we put it to music that night. Then later, it was claimed as the black anthem of American blacks all over the United States at Malcolm X College in Chicago, where I got my first doctorate.
What was that in, your doctorate?
In humanities.
Really? So I should have said Dr. Simone.
Well, yes, I'm a doctor 2 times. I have it in humanities from Malcolm X College, and I have it in music from Amherst College. And that's what that song is all about.
Right.
I've learned from all the great musicians we've had. That's my music. That's my education.
And that's an impressive list as well.
Oh, yes. Yes, Tommy Flanagan, Oscar Peterson. Oh, gosh. Right now, offhand, I can't think of all of them.
Well, there are far too many for anyone to think of, really.
Yeah.
Now, your scat singing, which is so extraordinary, where did you learn that from?
From Dizzy Gillespie. Somebody a Gillespie fan?
Yeah. Well, they're interested, certainly.
Yeah, they used to have after-hour spots in New York. And I used to follow the band and go where Dizzy and them would play. And I started jamming with them, trying to do what they were doing. And that's how I became, whatever you call it, a scat or bop or whatever it was.
What would a Vietnam vet be like without a sergeant, without any backup, without any other soldiers, nobody but a Vietnam vet in Vietnam? When he came home, how would he be? And that's me. I had to go through all that street, war, everything, the same drugs that everybody else get turned out on. You know, where I would have been stopped shorted, I made it past. And here's where I am. But because I made it past, I missed some lessons. You know what I'm saying? And you can see the lessons that I missed when you talk to me. You can see where I haven't had a father when you talk to me. You know what I'm saying? You can see where I spent a lot of my time in the streets when you talk to me. Because the words that I say are not words that come from a mother's mouth or a father's mouth. It's words that comes from a pimp's mouth or a prostitute or a hustler or a drug dealer. You know what I'm saying? But to me, these were my role models.
Dear class of 2020, you were robbed and it's appropriate to mourn. You made plans for your life. You made plans for your spring semester. Maybe it was a high school musical. Maybe it was track season. Maybe it was prom. Maybe it was a summer job that was lined up that went south. It is appropriate to mourn because there's a way in which your freedom was taken away from you, insofar as freedom is simply the ability to make plans of your own design and enact them. And in order to do that, the world must play along. And the world did not. So if you feel sad, first I want to tell you that it is appropriate to mourn. Your freedom was robbed. And I liken it to, and if you want to talk to your parents about this, to the 1980 Olympics when the U.S. pulled out because we were in the middle of the Cold War. But you had all of these athletes who had trained their entire life to peak at that Olympics. And then the Olympics were taken away from them. And there's a way in which we robbed them of their freedom, of their self-determination in doing that. So you're kind of like an Olympic athlete. Just on a possibly different scale, but it's still you. So like these were your dreams that were dashed by COVID-19. It wasn't the Cold War. It was a war against the invisible enemy, which is this virus. So if you feel sad, if you are feel some sort of way about your lack of ability to enact your freedom, the plans you had made for the last 4 years of your life that were going to come to fruition, it's perfectly appropriate. Don't let anyone call you crazy because you were robbed. If you're going to college, I hope it opens. Also, do very well your first semester in college. You don't want to start in a hole and have to dig yourself up over the course of college. You want to start up and kind of like slowly drift down as things may be. So study too much. Study too much.
Buddy Rich used to have I don't know how he did it, but he used to get these young guys straight out of college.
Yeah.
And he worked them to death. I mean, he would crack the whip. That was, if you had to walk on stage, and I did it with this band, with no rehearsal, and have them read my show without an error, they did it.
I think they were scared to death not to, right?
They did it. They did it. They could do it. There's only two bands that I would walk on stage with without a rehearsal. Mm-hmm. Just put the music in front of me. That's Basie and Buddy Rich. Right.
That's interesting because they're kind of different.
They're very different.
The Rich band was quite young for the most part.
Yes, but they were on it.
Yeah.
They could read from across the room. They were really happening. It was a dynamite band.
One of the issues that's come up in the course of the interview was the importance of media in setting taste, in shaping what's acceptable and what's desirable by the general population in terms of entertainment, art, music, culture, etc. How do you see doing a document like this fitting into that kind of a perspective, or what can be done to enhance the position of jazz in the media?
Well, the way I think it would enhance the music or the industries for that matter, is because they will get some authentic information, first of all, some real true information about what we do and what we have done in terms of the creativity of this art form. And I think that much more of it needs to be put on film and documented by recording or film, if not both, so that students who have never seen Duke Ellington still can learn about his music, for example, even though they're no longer here. You know, greats like Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Lester Young, Charlie Parker, etc. All of these musicians are dead and gone. Therefore, all you've got in terms of value is what they have left through recordings. And if any of them have done any of this kind of thing, that even makes it more valuable, of course.
Mm-hmm. As much a part of the repertoire of the MJQ as, I want you to reflect on John Lewis as a composer, not only just using classical devices, but as a lyrical, melodic composer, and what you found inspiring within that. And then also talk about your contribution to the MJQ's repertoire, which was not insignificant in terms of pieces that contributed.
Okay. I've always had a great admiration and respect for John. He's also one, having gotten his master's, made him a well-rounded musician, one who is not only one of the pioneers and a great jazz pianist, but he also is a very, very marvelous composer and arranger. You know, he's got all of those qualities that connect up that make you a very gifted musician. I always respect that. Now, I learned a lot through him from the technical aspects. You know, I give him a large amount of the credit for me being able to finally read music, which I didn't really do in high school. I only read certain parts. I'll tell you the reason for that. Going back to my high school days, that perfect pitch, which we discussed on recording, in a way, in most cases, it's an asset. In some ways, it can be a drawback. Let me explain one of the few drawbacks in my own case. Having had that natural gift of perfect pitch and a photographic memory, I could listen to the music and memorize it before most of the students could read it. Therefore, I already had it learned in my head, and I said, well, why go through the trouble of learning it and taxing your brain with learning it by reading it from the paper when I already have it in my head? At that time, it's like being aggressive or being arrogant and cocky, which I learned, which was a mistake, because later on, I still had to go back into theory and harmony to learn how to be a composer in terms of writing music down and arranging it and all this kind of thing. Had I done that in high school at the time when I had those facilities at my disposal while I was still sharp as far as the mind is concerned, I could have done it much easier, you see? But having waited until later on to get back to that, then as you know, the older you get, the slower you get, then the slower the mind works. So it was a little more difficult in getting back to it. Had I done it at that time, it would have been far easier for me to do.
What kind of message would you share with young people? I know you've commented on gangster rap, and I understand it. I understand where you're coming from with it. But what are your comments on that subject for young people, for your fans, for 11 or 12 or 13-year-old that listens to your music?
First, I'm gonna say, I don't feel all the adoration or whatever that comes from the fans. I feel like a lot of people put different standards on judging me than they will put on the next man. You know, one rapper can say, I'll kill you, I'll cut your heart out, I'll put this gun to your pregnant belly and blah, 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 and he get all love. All I'll say is, you know, we don't need to be letting these BITCHs run our life. And I'm hating females, you know what I mean? And this other person could be the man. So I don't feel it. I think I've been attacked more than I deserve, but that's all good to me, because I always been a fighter, always been a soldier, always been a struggler. Can't nothing stop me but death itself. You know what I mean? So as far as what I have to say to other people, I don't really want to come off like I got the answer, I'm finna teach y'all. It's not like that, I don't got the answers. But just from where I'm sitting at, I can see the only reason I ever came out and said, when I said I was living the thug life, believe me, it was all real. You know, and as sure as thug life is tattooed across my stomach, it will always be a part of me. But thug life is like the 12th grade. Some people graduate from high school and don't seek to do anything else. So they continually live the thug life. Some people want to go to college and want to go, hold on, let me pick up Yummy.
Okay, ready? Rolling. Some people go to college.
Yeah, like high school is thug life. You know, you graduate from 12th grade, and you can live your whole life with a high school diploma, but you're always gonna be missing something. That's where I felt like I was. Thug life is always gonna be real to me, and it still is real to me, because as long as the factors that make thug life are there, thug life will be there. But I also felt like I wanted to go to college, not college in a school or university, but college in life. I wanted to move up. So I wanted to do something different. I wanted to expand. I wanted to grow. And that's what this was all about, by saying, you know, no more of that. I want some more of this. I want y'all to see this. You didn't like that? Well, you definitely ain't gonna like this. So what I would tell, you know, anybody who would listen to me is that, you know, you gotta start peeping the game. The game is the game of life. You gotta start peeping how they're doing it. And if you see it, you can see the little signs that says that the guns are turning away from, you know, Europe and Russia and Iran and Iraq, and they're turning to us. Because look how they're doing our music. You know, you've never seen in no time in history where they put so much attention on some music. You know what I mean? And made it like we are the cause of all these problems. You can look at it with the 3 strikes law. You can look at it where they're building more jails. They're starting to sell jail space. You know, jail is big business. Believe me, I'm in jail. I see the big business. They charge you for your telephone calls. They charge you for disciplinary problems. Jail is big business. You know, you can feed a whole town off one jail. This jail is in the middle of a town that feeds everybody. Everybody works here. This is the main income. So if there was no criminals, nobody would work. You know what I mean? So if we don't start peeping that, we're in trouble. Also, I know when I was young, the way they described jail is like, you know, blah, 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 blah. I couldn't wait to get to jail. Straight up. I mean, I was scared and everything. But
What,
I couldn't
3
wait
huts
to
in the
get
cot,
there.
or
No
just what?
question. It was just that's where you get the game. That's where you got more soldiers at that'll build you. But now that I'm here, this is not the spot. I know everybody go to jail, come out and say, it ain't the spot. This is not the spot. You got somebody that tells you when you can get up, when you can shower, when you can do this, when you can do that. You know, they can speak to you any way they want to, and you got to accept it. You can die here, you know what I mean? Just yesterday, a dude was murdered. He wasn't in here on no murder beef. This dude was in here on a drug beef. You know, he's gone, he's dead in jail. You know what I mean? By another prisoner who had life. He had nothing to lose, you know what I mean? So when you start looking at it like that, you'll start seeing that it just don't weigh out to be in our favor. So we need to start figuring out another way. Now, if we do want to live a thug life and a gangster life and all of that, okay, so stop being cowards and let's have a revolution. But we don't want to do that. Dudes just want to live a character. They want to be cartoons. But if they really wanted to do something, they was that tough, all right, let's start our own country. Let's start a revolution. Let's get out of here. Let's do something. But they don't want to do that. They want to pimp our communities and portray this image that they know we all can't survive and make it. And that's what I saw. Even though I was surviving in the thug life, everybody that was trying to be like me was going to jail. And then finally I went to jail. Even though I wasn't getting shot up, they was all getting shot up. Then I got shot up. And I started seeing, damn, you know, it is my fault. It's not my fault where I made it happen, but it's my fault because I'm smarter than that.
Yeah.
Now, if I was dumb and I was ignorant is bliss. Ignorance is bliss. Now, if I was dumb, it'd be cool. It wouldn't be my fault. But it's my fault because I'm smarter than that. I do have another way I can say this. It doesn't mean that I don't feel that way no more. It just means that let me be as smart as them or smarter.
Let's go back to the beginning. You were born in what city?
Born in the great metropolis of Tulsa, Oklahoma, June 2nd, 1953. Moton Hospital, same hospital actually as the Wilson brothers of the Great Gap Band.
And what were your parents doing then?
Now, Dad was actually, he was trying to get into dental school, I think, at the University of Tulsa. And Mom was a homemaker, already in college and on her way to become both a teacher and principal, and just recently had a elementary school named after her.
In Tulsa?
In Sacramento. You know, we
moved
moved
to Sacramento?
Yeah, exactly.
How long did you live in Tulsa?
I stayed in Tulsa just a few weeks, actually. And we moved to Topeka, Kansas. And then from Topeka, Kansas, we ended up in Sacramento, my dearly beloved Sacramento, California.
But your grandfather was a minister in
My
Tulsa?
granddad, Reverend C.L. West Metropolitan Baptist Church, was one of the great ministers and pastors of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Self-taught, self-educated, and he loved his people.
Now, I know your dad died in 1994?
Yeah, Dad passed in 94.
How about your mom?
Absolutely. Mom's stronger than ever. She's got more energy, much more intelligence and wisdom and beauty than I do.
Where does she live?
She lives in Sacramento.
And you mentioned your brothers?
Oh, yeah. My brother Cliff, who is, if I could be 1/3 of the person he is, I would actually be living a grand life. He's in Sacramento, too.
What's he do?
He does so many things in computer software. He's a track coach. He's a wise person in the community. He's also an artist and writes music, father.
You have other brother?
No, he's the only one.
Only brother, no sisters?
And 2 younger sisters, yeah. We've got wonderful 2 sisters. Cynthia, who's marvelous. She's there in Sacramento. And then and Cheryl. So we've got my mother still alive, my brother Clifton, and then my sister Cynthia and Cheryl.
What year did you graduate from high school in Sacramento?
1970, John F. Kennedy High School.
And then you went to Harvard?
Then I went off to Harvard College.
How did you even think about going from all the way from Sacramento to Harvard?
Well, at that time, I just wanted to be with what many considered to be the best. And there's a lot of superb places around. You know, you got Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Fisk, Morehouse, Howard, University of Chicago. But I said, well, no, someone that said Harvard was the best. Let me go spend some time with the best and see what things are like.
How did you get in? What kind of student were you at Sacramento?
Sacramento, I was nearly 4.0. Student body president, played first violin, and was captain of the track with the cross-country team and so forth. So I had done some things. No doubt about it.
So
but 30 years earlier, I wouldn't have gotten in.
Why?
Well, the racism, you know, the white supremacy is still operating. I would have gone to Howard, which still would have been a wonderful education and so forth, but I probably would not have gotten in. It was the social movements of the 60s, especially the death of Martin King, the uprisings, the 212 uprisings, April 4th, 1968, that opened the doors for someone like myself to gain access. But once there, you know, I had to do my job.
Were there any black professors at Harvard in 1970?
Oh, sure. Martin Kilson, who was my very good friend and mentor, he was there. He was the first tenured professor at Harvard. Martin Kilson in political science, in government department. Very much so.
What year did you graduate? I know you have 3 years at Harvard. What year was it?
Yeah, I finished a year early. It was 1973.
Then what?
Then off to Princeton.
For how long?
I was there for 2 years, finished up courses, took my exams, went back to Cambridge, and began mainly to write literature for a while, mainly reading the Russians. So.
Where did you get your doctorate degree?
Princeton.
The ethical dimensions of Marxist thought.
Yeah, that was a dissertation. That was a dissertation.
You like
Deeply
Marx?
Influenced by my good friend and mentor and brother Richard Rorty, one of the towering figures, not just towering philosophers, towering intellectuals of our day.
Professor at Princeton.
He was my professor at Princeton, but I had so many others. There was Paul Vanasserif, who's my good friend. He is a logician, and we can go on, Tim Scanlon, Walter Kaufman, Tom Nagel, and others. It was a wonderful place to be, actually.
Do you like Marx?
You know? Well, the Marxist tradition is, for me, is a crucial one because Marx himself put the focus on working people, and he understood that if we're going to understand capitalist markets, we have to understand the power relations between labor and management, between working people and their bosses, and that the power relations are asymmetric. That is to say that the bosses in management have more power than workers and employees. And he knew there was going to be tension and a struggle. And he said, I want to keep the focus in a very Christian way on the least of these, on those who are catching the most hell. And of course, unfortunately, we associate Marx in America with repressive communist regimes, you see. But Marx himself in the 19th century says what? There will be vast levels of wealth inequality. There will be oligopolies and monopolies at the top that devour more and more businesses with unaccountable concentrations of power and wealth. How do we ensure the dignity of working people? How do we ensure their voices are heard, not just through the ballot box, but at the workplace? Now, as a radical Democrat, someone who comes out of the tradition of a Walt Whitman and a W.B. Du Bois, I have to take very seriously that Marxist tradition, even as I reject the regimentation and the repression that we rightly associate with communist regimes in the 20th century. So that's why when I talk about the progressive Marxist theory, that there are basic needs of working people around the world that remain unmet. Housing, jobs with a living wage, health care. Look at America, 44 million fellow citizens, but no health care insurance. What's going on in the richest nation in the history of the world? Even the more vulnerable, children. 1 out of 5 children living in poverty in the richest nation in the history of the world. That's a disgrace in many ways, you see. Nearly 1 out of 2 black and brown children living in poverty in the richest nation in the history of the world. The Marxist tradition simply says we have to be able to tell a story about how it is that the levels of wealth inequality are what they are, and why it is that too many working people and poor people still don't have access to food, shelter, health care, and so on and so forth. I mean, you think, for example, Brian, you've got 1% of the population in America who own 48% of the net financial wealth. That's oligarchic, in many ways plutocratic, and in some ways pigmentocratic, given the history of white supremacy. We got 3 billionaires in the world who have more wealth than the bottom 48 nations. The top 225 richest individuals have more wealth than 41% of all of humanity. That's 2.7 billion people. And the Marxist tradition simply says, look, we have to be able to tell a story. How do we analyze this? Not by demonizing other people, but by saying, well, there's something about profit-making that ought to take into consideration much more satisfying basic needs as opposed to simply producing more luxury goods in order to make money, you see. But that's a tough message for America.
So the idea that, and this is, I call them the suburban left, the white left from company money, the white left from, not company money, from family money, has kind of the most sentimentalist, like naively materialist politics in the world. One, they don't believe in work. They think, I think Stoller said, they think strawberries come from grocery stores. They don't understand the production, the importance of production for sustaining our freedom. But 2, they think we should have these great policies because that's just being nice to people. Students are under debt. We should free their debt because that's just bad. That's just mean. Well, no, we should forgive their debt because they took on that debt as a matter of fraud. They were defrauded by, the entire media industry during the 90s, the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s that told you that good debt was always going to be paid. There's an entire propaganda industry. I remember watching A Different World, and I almost went to Howard because of A Different World. I liked Kim, the one who was going to be the doctor. I thought she was lovely. But I was like, I want to go to, but I ended up going to a public school out in California. But a different world, like, that was propaganda saying that go to one of these HBCUs, even the private ones, and they'll pay for, like, the loans you take out will be worth it because at the end you'll end up making more money. I bet you a different world has caused more student loan debt than, I don't know, divorce. No. I just, like that, a lot of people took out loans because they were defrauded by propaganda, because that's how we make our plans. And if freedom is what I've talked about in other shows, freedom is our ability to make plans and then enact them. The stuff we make plans out of is the information that's given to us by the media. That's so, like, if media is saying insistently that you need to go to college to become somebody, everybody tells black people, well, the problem with black, if you're going to be black, you just need to educate yourself, and the truth is through education. So these black people went to college, took out student loans, and now are paying off student loans for jobs that aren't going to pay them back. And I think a lot of that is a matter of fraud. Look, if we bailed out the bankers in 2008, and they have all of these distorted incentives to sign people up for loans and then pass the loans on to bigger brokers or bigger banks, then we should bail out students who had all of these perverse incentives to take out loans. I personally paid off my loans about 2 years ago, but that's just a matter of luck. And I went to a public school, and most of my loans are for my master's program. So that's my individual experience does not negate the proper claim to just forgive these loans. These loans are a matter of fraud. Sure, the nation was confused about the value of a college education, but that confusion ends up on the balance sheet of a lot of vulnerable people, while a lot of other people just say, oops. So I want to clear off the balance sheet of those vulnerable people who are, I think, suborned into a misrepresentation of the value, monetary value, and return of a college education. So that's why you forgive loans, not because you feel sorry for people. No, but because they were defrauded as a matter of right. They were punished for making plans based on the information they were given, and they were punished for making plans based on the information they were given, and punishing people for making plans about their life is pretty much punishing people for aspiring to be free. Because freedom is a matter of being able to make plans and then enact them. So in order for you to be able to make plans and enact them, the world has to play along, or at least be honest about the stuff out of which you make plans. All right, so you see the difference in the arguments?
Did you really say once that I stole everything I liked, but mostly I stole from the horns?
I think everybody steals from each other. I think that's the only way that we keep alive as far as learning. It's just like going to school and learning history or learning anything. Actually, when you're learning in school, you're stealing something from another, what would you call it? From something from years back. What you learn is something that, but you add something to it. And that's the way people are. We all learn something. The horns learn from another musician, and singers learn from another singer. And I like to try to sing like a horn sometimes, some of my songs. Because to me, that's the great accomplishment, to try to feel like if I'm playing what I hear a musician play.
Can you just do scat straight off the top of your head? I mean, without music, could you do scat now?
Oh, you mean now?
Yeah, facing me.
Don't ask me what it is.
I don't know what to say to that, really.
I want to ask how many here understood it.
One always talks about, there's talk about singers and acting. Are you a singing actress?
I don't know, because what I sing is only what I feel. I had some lady ask me the other day about music lessons and things like that. And I've never, except what I had to learn for my half credit in school, You know, I've never given it a thought. I've never taken breathing lessons, which in a way I wished I had now, you know. But fortunately, it has taken me this far. But I could never tell anyone how to sing.
But you can, if you hear them, you can hear how they're singing. You mean you couldn't teach, but could you hear and change?
Them.
No?
Well, the only thing I could tell them is if I think they're not singing themselves. I started out trying to sing like Miss Connie Boswell. And the thing about trying to sing like somebody else, it's all right as long as you're singing what they sing. But then when you have to get out in that bag by yourself and you don't know the song or you don't know how they're going to sing, then you're lost. Then you have to go for yourself. So that's what happened. I had to go for myself, and that's how I guess I got a style. Then I also had a man who was such a great man, Chick Webb, the late Chick Webb. He felt that what I had was I had to experience. And he felt that he didn't want to rush me into what I was doing. I wanted to sing ballads right away, and he didn't think my voice was ready for it.
Well, I want all young people to understand that there's a way to do everything. I did not want to choose to be in New York City without being able to take care of myself. I did not believe that I should come here and say to Cannonball, make me a star. I mean, we're all musicians and people trying to earn our way into this business. I didn't think that was anybody's responsibility but mine. So I came here, went to the telephone company, learned to work a PBX, it was a phone operator. Went to Triangle Handbag Company in Lower and Garment District for a little bit, and then I ended up as the secretary to the dean at the New York Institute of Technology. Because the hours were from 12 to 8, and I could sing at night, do my daytime thing, and they also were very understanding. And when it came time to go to California to record, when it came time for photo sessions, and I always had the leeway to go do what they were very supportive of what I was trying to do. So I really am grateful to the New York Institute of Technology, to Canon, for when I did get here. There was a young lady who still lives here in New York. She was the band singer with Johnny Hammond Smith. We were roommates when I first came to New York. We hung out and went and just sat in at places. Went to the Blue Morocco in the Bronx within a matter of 10 days, 2 weeks after I arrived in New York. Irene Reed broke her leg. I stayed there until I moved to California with the first album. I sang there 4 nights a week, I think it was. Once I had a place to sit down and sing, then Cannon said, you're working? Yep, I'm working. John Levy came, said, I'll call you tomorrow. And that following week, I was in the studio with Ray Bryant, his trio. We did 4 demos, which were recorded within the next year. Within a matter of months, I was in California. Actually, it was in December of that year. I came to New York in October. I had John Levy, MCA, Capitol Records, David Cavanaugh, and a new album in the can by January 15th. So that's kind of that's okay.
You can call your dad and say, hey, it worked.
It was done.
That was wonderful. Yeah.
And I was blessed here again. My people were not show business people. They did not push. They wouldn't have known how. It was, the music was in my face all from the time I was a little kid.